Good morning and welcome to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Thursday edition of the program. We're glad you're along for the ride. Remember, you can check us out on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you're on Facebook Live, follow us and like us, do all that good stuff. We got a good show for you today. We're going to be joined by Heath Cline from 107.5 The Game up in Columbia, South Carolina here in just a second. Second portion of the show, former Gator wide receiver, Super Bowl champ, Travis Taylor will be joining us. Some news and notes real quick. Trey Burton, who was released from the Bears a couple weeks ago, signs with the Indianapolis Colts. The match between pay-per-view from Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods is going to be joined now by Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. That should be interesting. Also, the draft is tonight, and Percy Harvin is wanting to come out of retirement and go back to the NFL. But we're going to go straight to our Titan MR hotline right now, and we're going to be joined, as I mentioned, from Columbia, South Carolina, 107.5 The Game, Heath Cline. Heath, good morning. How are you, bud?
Hey, Shane. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Hope you and your family are safe up there. What's Heath Cline doing to pass the time during this downtime?
It's kind of a weird situation. You know, obviously we're all kind of coping with it the best we can, but, I've still got a radio show every day. So the thing that's funny, Shane, is a lot of the time people may not know this. Heck, if they did, they wouldn't care. But my wife works in TV in Raleigh. And so I go back and forth. Now, because of this, they won't let us in our studio. I can live next door to the studio and they wouldn't let me in. So I'm doing the show full time right now from our place in Raleigh. So it's kind of a weird deal because I haven't actually gotten to physically be in Columbia to do the show now for a number of weeks. And so I'm still doing the show. I'm still talking to them. I'm still talking about things they care about. It's just kind of this weird dual existence because normally I'm there for at least several days a week and I'm able to be there. So it's kind of weird. But, the other thing is, like yesterday, I had to do another radio show, and so I had to go to this other part of the place because my wife is having to produce TV out of here too, because they're not letting her in the studio either. So she has to do her packages and all her reporting and everything. She's got to do that in our place too. So I mean, if you had told me that there'd ever be a scenario that we'd be doing TV podcasts, you name it out of here, we're like ESPN only with a dog, then I would not have believed that. But here we are.
Crazy times, no doubt about it. Well, Heath, before we jump into the draft, talk a little South Carolina football. Your thoughts, Percy Harvin wanting to come back and try it again. I think he's been out of the league for 3 years. What are your thoughts about that?
Shane, the kind of athletes that you played with, that you've seen since then through the UF program. I think Percy is the single most physically just gifted, dominant offensive guy I saw. There were so many great players, but there's still that occasional dude that even among those guys just stands out. And I mean, the fact that guy was built like a He-Man action figure, and then on top of that, could cut and accelerate through the cut in a way that you just don't see normal humans do. I just always thought he was going to be more than his career turned out to be. He still had some great moments in the NFL, but it just, it always felt like there was more meat on the bone there. But I don't know how much of his issues were injured, how much were that it seemed like maybe there were some questions about how things went with him in the locker room in some situations. But if he, for whatever reasons, if he is back to being himself or close to it, he might not be what he was in his prime, but he was so much better than everybody else physically that I saw, that I just feel like if he's right, if he's where he needs to be, I'd sure bring him into my camp and see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't think there's got to be somebody out there. I mean, John Gruden, heck, Gruden used to love to sign guys that, or at least look at guys that people hadn't thought about for years. I remember when he was with the Bucks, he brought in Andre Rison. Andre Rison hadn't played in the league in like half a decade. So I got to believe somebody's going to at least give him a look if he wants it and he's right. And I hope it works out for him.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. In my years of following and watching the Gators, I think Percy's the most dominating guy with the ball in his hands. Just truly remarkable. So, hopefully it works out. But yeah, if I'm a team out there, I'd at least give him a shot because he's got way too much talent and he could definitely help a team. When you're looking at the draft tonight, which it's going to be very bizarre. I don't know if I've ever really cared about watching a draft, Heath, but I'm excited to watch it tonight. I guess because there's no other sports going on. But it's going to be a very unique situation.
Yeah, I mean, it has the potential for chaos, but the part everybody's kind of joking about that, right? Because I don't know if you're a fantasy draft guy or not, Shane, but if you've ever done a fantasy draft online, and anybody who's in fantasy sports at some point almost certainly has, there's always that time where somebody screws up, either their computer goes out or they get distracted or whatever, and they run out of time, and the computer automatically drafts some guy for them that got cut 3 weeks ago, and then you have to reset the whole draft and fix it. Everybody's been joking about that. That's going to probably happen in the first 5 picks tonight or something. But the part I'm actually really intrigued by is do we see a difference in how these teams draft, not physically, that part of it, but do we see more reliance on what guys actually were? Because how many times do you or me or fans watch the draft and see the outcome and say, wait a minute, how is that dude a 4th round pick? I watched that guy play. I know that guy's a better player than some of these guys I've seen go ahead of him. What is it? And then you find out, well, it's that he ran about a tenth of a second slower than they wanted, or they put him through some drill and it wasn't perfect. And I just wonder if maybe if they have to rely more on tape than they've ever had to before, which is what they're having to do since most of these pro days didn't happen. Do we see fewer of those? Do we see them spend more time instead of obsessing over some minor detail and convincing himself some guy's a superstar that isn't, or a guy that's been productive his whole career? Yeah, but what about this? Do we see it reflect more truly maybe what guys look like on tape? And that's the part I'm curious about tonight, is whether or not we see a little bit less of that. And also, do we see less scout groupthink? Because when those guys go to pro days, they work the circuits, they talk to each other. And I just wonder if we'll see more teams have some really independent thought, and there'll be a guy that nobody had in the top 20, but one team says, you know what, we like him and we're taking him. If we see that instead of happening maybe once or twice, maybe 4 or 5 times. I'm curious to see that tonight too.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said. They're going to have to rely on popping in the tape and seeing how this guy plays on Saturdays and go from there, which I think is great, because that's the most important thing, is how do you play when you step between the lines. Heath, South Carolina football, who can, we got a lot of guys, people that listen to our show that follow the SEC, obviously. Who might get their name called the next few days from South Carolina?
Javon Kinlaw definitely will get called in the first. The least could possibly go is in the back part of the top 20. I think he's going to be no worse than the second defensive tackle taken. I'm curious to see how teams handle a few things tonight. The earliest I could see Kinlaw going is pick 7 to the Panthers. I think if you're the Panthers and you want Kinlaw, you should probably, if there is somebody willing to come up, you should probably try and get down a few picks. So you could probably still get him latter part of the top 10, early part of the second 10. But he'll be the one guy that would go tonight. And he's a really good player. Right? He is somebody that maybe, because South Carolina did have a winning season, isn't on fans' radar as much as he is scouts' radar, but he legit can dominate at times and is still very much on the upswing. This is not a guy that you feel like has fully maximized what he could be. Had to go to JUCO, wasn't exactly getting 3 square meals earlier in his life, and so one point got heavy, had to work on getting the weight off more than the technique for a little bit, but he really, really kept growing. I think there's a lot more room for teams to develop him, and I think he's got a lot more potential as a pass rusher right now than Derek Brown. Brown's a better player today, but that doesn't mean Derek Brown's the better player 2 years from now. And I think even if Brown goes first, I got no problem with that. I think somebody's going to view him as pretty close to Brown as a talent. So whatever that first tackle goes, I think you'd see Kinlaw soon after. Brian Edwards is going to go. That's the question, Shane. There's so many receivers this year. Now, I've seen some general managers say they think it's possible you will get a starting level receiver in the 4th or 5th round. And so it's hard for me to say, because Edwards is not a guy who got to do his pro day. He didn't get to do Senior Bowl because he had an injury. So I don't know how much that'll hurt him. He doesn't cleanly catch everything, but he's physical. He's a competitor. He's a winner. I think he's going to be a good player for somebody. But you could tell me he goes 3rd round, I'll buy it. You tell me 5th round, I'll buy it too, because there's so many receivers. And then they got some other guys that can go. Rico Dowdle's not a bad tailback. He might get into the back of the 6th, 7th round. Most people are going to wait on running backs. and I'm curious to see about a couple of other guys too. But those are the two that I think if anybody's going to get called by Friday night, it's going to be Edwards, and it's going to definitely be Kinlaw tonight.
We're speaking with Heath Cline. You can follow him on Twitter at Heath Radio. He has his show 107.5 on 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. Heath, you do a lot of national stuff as well. I know you fill in for Chuck Oliver here and there. When you look at Joe Burrow, talk a little bit about what you thought of the season. I thought it was one of the most remarkable seasons I've ever seen from a college quarterback. Do you think it's going to translate to the next level?
If he's that guy, absolutely. I mean, Shane, I can't think of anything quite like this with quarterbacks. I mean, if this was baseball, what will we all say? Everybody say, that dude, I don't know where that guy went. He go to the Dominican Republic. Where'd he go? You know, where did he get the PED that made him into this guy that hit 60 home runs now? But you can't PED for quarterbacking. You got to do it yourself. I mean, I guess you could do a PED, but it's not going to help you know how to read a defense or hit a receiver. He just was like a totally different human being this year, and it's just crazy. The closest thing I could think of to it, Shane, was Carson Palmer had talent, and people thought he was going to be a nice player, but then that last year of his career, he went from that to first pick in the draft, Heisman Trophy winner. But he was a lot closer to that on the hype machine before that ever happened. And Burrow, I mean, he was a 58% completion guy last year, and then he looked like a guy who was playing the video game version of the football, and he was on, playing the beginner level, and he's advanced. That's what it looked like. You're not supposed to be able to make this look like that. And, even like Clemson, it's like, okay, Clemson's got him on his heels a little bit. Heisman high, maybe this is where we finally see it all come back to earth. And he just starts torching him. I mean, it was just crazy. The only thing I wonder about with him, Shane, is just that, okay, they did have Joe Brady, who did enough to impress the NFL that he's a coordinator now after just 1 year of college football and being a really, really low-level NFL assistant before that. That's kind of amazing that he went from that level of position to NFL OC in 1 year off of what Burrow did. I think what Burrow did looks sustainable if he's used correctly, but that'd be the only thing, is if it turns out that somehow Brady was so good that 5 other guys might have looked like Burrow, but I don't think so. I think the guy's grit. I think the guy, what he showed for reading defenses, all that, I sure think it's real. But you're the quarterback. I don't know why the heck you're asking me. I mean, you see it, Shane. Does it look sustainable to you?
Yeah, we had Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus on the show yesterday, and I asked him about Burrow. I said, look, when I watch him, and I love watching quarterbacks, he reminds me of Tom Brady, but with mobility. And the reason I say Brady is because of his accuracy, how he knows where to go with the football. I just thought he played at an extremely high level. It's the best I've ever seen for a season in college football. I do think he will translate to be a very good pro. Heath, when you look at Tua, there's been some talks he may drop, what have you. Your thoughts on Tua compared to Justin Herbert?
I don't trust Herbert as a prospect. As a guy, there's nothing you would have any issue with there. By all accounts, he's really bright, works hard, everything. Shane, you were just talking about, what you see when you look at Burrow. When I watched games with Justin Herbert, I was waiting for him to show me something that makes me say, I understand why this dude supposedly could have even been the top pick last year. And I just don't say he's big. He can sling it, but he's not consistently accurate. Playing in Oregon, he hasn't seen the caliber of competition week in, week out defensively that you see in some other conferences. I'm not saying that Justin Herbert shouldn't get a shot in the NFL, but somebody is probably going to take him in the top 6 or so picks tonight. And I would not want to be that team personally. I would not be excited about it if it was my team taking him that high in this draft. Tua, that's the big question, right? We don't know what's going to happen because of the injury, so we have no idea what teams think because of how limited the exposure is. And I don't want to come off in any way as insensitive to what's going on right now. We all understand this is a very serious issue, but I got to say, I'm a little baffled why every team had to go into total lockdown on every player. I don't understand why, if you were a team, say, in the top 10 why the NFL couldn't allow the Dolphins to say, all right, we're going to send a plane. It's going to be a private plane. We're going to pick Tua up, and we'll bring him to our facility and put him through an MRI or whatever, and put him on a plane and send him home. Or why, however you want to do it. Let the teams come to Tua and tell them they all have to stand 20 yards apart and wear spacesuits or whatever. I just don't understand how it makes sense to have a guy that everybody understands the number one question about him is where he is physically, and how they can't figure out a way to allow him to get examined or teams to spend some time with him. I mean, yes, this is a serious medical issue, but it's not like we're in Bird Box here, and if you open your eyes, you're going to die. There had to be some rational way to get this done, and I don't know if it was just easier to say, well, if we don't let him do it for Tua, then nobody else's agent could say, what about him? But I just think it's ridiculous that they couldn't figure out a way somehow to get an evaluation of him. But as a player, Shane, just the player, let's say we know he's healthy. I mean, he made great plays, but the one thing I guess I'd wonder about is he had such good receivers to work with. If he doesn't have the luxury of guys getting open like that and guys are going to make giant plays all the time, he only played basically 21 games. I would like to have seen a little bit more of him in just some circumstances where it felt like what we saw from Burrow, for example, in that Clemson game, where it's like, okay, he's dealing with some adversity there. We just didn't get to see much of that with Tua, and that's not his fault. He's really good. He plays a really good program, and it just works out that way sometimes. I just wish we had more. There's a lot to like, but between the physical questions and not more tape, would I take him top 5? If I'm a team and I believe in him, I take him, as opposed to Herbert, who I don't believe in, so I wouldn't. But do I feel confident Tua is going to be a guy we're talking about 6 years from now as a success? I'm not sure I am.
Yeah. We're speaking with Heath Cline on the Titan MR hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. A few more questions for you, Heath. We appreciate you joining the program. Let's look at South Carolina. Will Muschamp brings in Mike Bobo to run the offense. Do you like that move?
Yeah, I think it's a good move for 2 reasons. One, because Bobo is somebody that he trusts, and I think that you really would have had a hard time right now getting Will Muschamp to put his trust into somebody else. Now, things change because of what's going on. Before this, Will Muschamp was well aware 2020 he was coaching for his job. Given the circumstances and what may happen with college sports financially after this, it might not be the same type of thing when it comes to when you can let coaches go and when you cannot. Right now, Will Muschamp's buyout after the season would be $13 million. And $13 million before this was very different than it's going to be after this. So he may not have that same degree of internal pressure anymore because of that contract situation. But he, when he hired him, knew he was coach for his job in 2020. When you see guys bring somebody in that they don't have relationships with, that they don't know, you just wonder, does it work? And so I think that the fact that there's that trust already there helps a lot. And then the fact that Mike Bobo, this is the first time, Shane, he's hired somebody that has coached in the SEC and been a successful coordinator in the SEC. He's had 4 different guys do the job for him, but none of them have had a resume remotely like what Bobo has. And so I like that too. We've seen him try to grow somebody from within with McClendon. It didn't really work out as they hoped it would. We saw him try with a guy in Kurt Roper that had at least a year that he liked, but it didn't really translate in the new spot. And obviously, all very well about how it went with Brent Peace and with Charlie Weiss. So trying somebody with experience who knows how to run a room and make the decisions and do it on the SEC level, to me, that made a lot of sense.
We don't know when we're going to play, if they're going to play college football this year, but if we do, and when we do, what Dan Mullen's done in his 2 years here at Florida has been remarkable, in my opinion. I think he's closed the gap on Georgia. Do you think the Gators can overtake the Bulldogs this year?
If everything stays the way it's written up right now, then yeah, I think they've got a really good shot. Now, if they start messing with the schedule and having to change things, who knows? But I think the fact that Georgia did not get Jamie Newman for anything other than some informal workouts with his guys before everybody had to leave campus, but they didn't get a single spring practice in. They're not going to get a single drill in before whenever they get to start trying to prepare for fall, if that works out. I think that that's a huge factor for Georgia. And I think you look at the combination of that, of having Alabama in week 3. I don't know that Florida has gotten to the point where they are top to bottom on talent as good as that Georgia team is perceived to be, but have they gotten to the point where the experience factor of having a guy like Trask at quarterback and Mullen having gotten more personnel in that fit what they want to do, have they gotten to the point where they've made up the gap enough to where that can make the difference? Yeah, I think they have. And that's the thing that I think you feel good about. The one thing is, Shane, I mean, the reality is we don't have a lot of examples so far of a Dan Mullen offense really having a great deal of success against a Kirby Smart defense yet. So that's the one thing you wonder about is there a chance, and it happens sometimes, that Kirby just kind of has Dan's number. I don't know that that's something I believe yet, but that's the one thing that, to me, if you're a Georgia fan, you're looking for something to hang your hat on, that would be the thing, because otherwise I think Florida's got a pretty good hand of cards to play this year compared to the Dogs.
Last thing for you, Heath, kind of a two-part question. What are you hearing out there? I know you got a lot of connections about when they may start the season. The second part of the question is, I know there's been some talk about playing only conference games. To me, that's I understand why, but I think the programs like the South Alabamas of the world, who is supposed to get a big payday coming to the Swamp, if they don't have that game, I don't know if the programs like South Alabama can survive. What are you hearing out there?
Well, you hear a zillion things. It's just a matter of, what the last story was somebody read online, maybe sometimes, as to where people's hopes are. But the one thing I think we can all count on, Shane, is exactly what you just said. Because this is so huge for all the athletic departments, it doesn't matter what kind of program you're talking about. Everybody has massive needs for finances that require football. They're going to do everything they can to play, but you still have a situation where you've got to have the local authorities on board, and you've got to have the university presidents on board. And so the one thing that virtually everybody seems to agree on is that if they don't have students on campus, then playing a football season with no students on campus is going to be just about impossible PR-wise. So that's the first thing. It's just, do we get to the point where all the students are on campus? And in some places, like Missouri yesterday, for example, they've said right now they think they will. In Purdue, they said the plan right now would be yes, that they'll be on campus for fall. But then there's other places where that might not be the case. And of course, this is April, so we don't know what's going to happen with the virus and with the rate of infection in different places. So the thing that I'm really fascinated out about, Shane, is what happens. Let's say that things go well enough that a lot of places believe it is okay for kids to be on campus, and that they say, all right, well, since the kids are on campus, we don't necessarily think it's safe to have full stadiums, full arenas, anything like that, but we'll let the students, say, come into the football stadium. So it won't be that they're performing just for TV. They'll be performing for their fellow students on campus, but we're not going to let the general public come into the games. And so it's not as bad of a PR look to be playing on an empty stadium, but it's a TV product. Even if you do that, well, what happens if the California governor says, no, it's not safe for kids to come to campus, we're not going to allow? Well, then what does the Pac-12 do in that situation? Do you say to the California schools, you've got to all play road games and only road games this year? That's the part I wonder about, is when you have 50 states and 50 different places that are going to have to make decisions based on their own level of health and safety, how are you going to handle it if you wind up with a patchwork situation left and right? I mean, we just got to throw the whole schedule in the air and start trying to reshape it in August or September if that's where this goes, and some places think it's safe and others don't. One way or the other, I think we will see football, because it will be too financially damaging for them if they don't, unless some of these states, and this is the other thing I wonder about, Shane, is do we see some states just say, you know what, we're going to have to bail out our athletic departments for a year. They didn't see this coming, and we'll take it out of their hide later on down the line. If you're coming back and asking for that money for that practice facility 9 years from now, forget it. You just got it to get bailed out for the year. But maybe that's what winds up happening too, because clearly there's no way they can make up for this money if they don't play football. But that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't give them the money in state governments in some places to at least get by for the year. But But they got to get football in financially or it's not going to work. So I think that's got to be a last option. And so spring, shorter season, playing at 3 a.m. and no one's out, so the virus isn't in the air as much. Your guess is as good as mine on that, man.
Last thing I meant to ask you, pro football. What are your thoughts about what the Bucs have done down there with Brady and now Gronk joining the Bucs?
I was more excited about, this is going to sound bad maybe, I was more excited about the fact Jameis isn't going to be the quarterback than I was that Tom Brady is going to be the quarterback. I don't know if Tom's got a ton left in the tank. I hope, as a Bucs fan, he does. But Shane, he looked different to me last year. He looked. It was the first time that I saw him look like a guy who was aware of the fact he was getting hit, and I saw him throwing passes to get rid of them quicker than he had done before, and just, maybe in a different situation, better receivers so he can get out quicker and have somebody who can actually help him when he gets it out quicker. Maybe being in warm weather, new situation, coach that can bring something out different in him. Maybe he will get rejuvenated and look closer to the Brady we saw a couple of years ago. But just getting the one thing I don't think he'll be is a guy who's just forcing passes into coverage left and right, and just making. You saw it, Jameis. It's just infuriating. I mean, I'm sorry. He's had terrible judgment off the field way too many times, and his judgment on the field has never gotten better. And I was so ready for that to end. Maybe somebody else can solve the Jameis mystery, but I don't need it to be the team I pull for. So good luck to him wherever else he goes. At Gronk, now we're going to find out, because a lot of the thought about what he was at the end of his career was that, yeah, he was kind of physically beaten up, but also that mentally maybe just playing in that Belichick approach to things worn him down. Well, now he's had about 18 months to go and be Gronk and live it up a little bit. And now, okay, can he come back and for a year or two enjoy football and be that guy and bring it out? Because as a player, man, I love that guy. So I'm really interested to see how the Gronk part of this goes. But I hope that it's as simple as just get Tom Brady guys like Godwin and Evans and now Gronk, and he can look more like himself than he did last year. But I think there's some concerns there. The other thing too, Shane, Bruce Arians, you know the deal on this. Arians wants to go down the field. He wants to stretch the field, bombs away. I don't know at 43 if that's necessarily what Tom does best. So what kind of hybrid are they going to put together to maximize what Tom does while still try to do what Bruce Arians does? Because on paper, those two guys and what they've done best is not a natural match right now.
Well, good stuff, Heath. Let everybody know how they can check your stuff out.
You can, if you want to, anytime, 1075thegame.com. You can click on there, and we've got the various listen live ways to do that. You mentioned earlier Heath Radio on Twitter and Heath Radio on Instagram. Fortunately, the pictures aren't of me, but I throw some stuff up on there every now and then too. So always glad to talk with you, Shane. Anybody down in Gainesville that remembers from back in the day when I was down there. So always enjoy it, man.
Hey, man, we appreciate it. Y'all stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon, Heath.
Sounds good, man. Same to you.
All right, that's Heath Cline, 1075 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. We're going to take our first time out of the program here. When we come back, hope to be joined by Travis Taylor, former Gator wide receiver, Super Bowl champ with the Baltimore Ravens. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Domino's, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank,
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
One in front of me. Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We appreciate Heath, Cline joining the program. I'm going to go now to our This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by your area rug masters. Is your whole family stuck at home and tracking in more than usual? Take your rugs to Area Rug Masters for a BOGO rug cleaning when you mention the code Shane. Call 352-448-5999. And today, This Day in Sports, since we're talking NFL Draft 2005, University of Utah quarterback Alex Smith, who was coached by Dan Mullen, first pick of the San Francisco 49ers. I believe we are now joined by Travis Taylor, former Gator wide receiver. Travis, are you there, my man?
I'm here, brother. How you doing? Good morning.
All right. Well, Travis, I don't think people know, but you are up very early now that you live out in Las Vegas, Nevada. We want to thank you for joining the program at about 5:30 your time. What's going on, man? How is Las Vegas during this downtime? Very strange.
Oh man, it's strange, man. No cars on the strip, no lights. It's quite a scene over here, but you know it's all for the good. So we're just buckled in, relaxing, and hanging out, and ready for this thing to kind of, you know, wipe itself out.
Well, Travis, like I said, you grew up in Jacksonville, the area there. I know you played a little bit at Camden County, but then graduated from Ribault. I like to ask all the guys when they come on the show here, because I think, you know, the whole recruiting process is very interesting to a lot of people. What coach from the University of Florida was instrumental in being the main recruiter for you when you were coming out of high school? And then what other schools did you entertain possibly going to?
Well, you know, that was a long, long time ago. So it's not like, you know, these days with social media and everything, everybody got 21 offers and 30 offers and 40 offers. You know, basically kind of got it from offers from the schools in your area. So for me, I think I had like 5 offers, man. It was Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Clemson, and Georgia Tech. And took a visit to Clemson, took a visit to Georgia Tech, went to Florida State, and went to Florida, man, and everything kind of just happened. I mean, it was a natural feeling for me. I felt at home. Coach Dixon was a huge part of my recruiting. Coach Collins was a huge part of my recruiting. I think he had the Jacksonville area, and obviously I had some Gator fans and family, so. You know, University of Florida was always the right pick for me.
Yeah. So as a kid coming out of high school, you came in basically kind of after we win the national title and play for it in '95. Did the style of offense that Coach Spurrier was running, Was that one thing that kind of jumped out to you?
It was, because actually when I was at Reebok in Jacksonville, we were one of the only schools in probably the nation that ran a run and shoot type style offense. When we came out, we was 4 receivers, quarterback in the shotgun. We ran the number system. We converted routes. So when I got to Florida, and I mean the route tree was exactly the same. We kind of called the routes the same that was in Florida, that was in as far as the number system that was in we had in Jacksonville. So like I said, it was just a natural fit. So it made the transition a lot easier for me.
Talk a little bit, as you mentioned, Coach Dwayne Dixon. I've had him on our show, and I think he was underappreciated a little bit because of all the great players that he put in the NFL, all the great receivers. Talk about what he meant to you as not only as a player, but off the field, but the drills that he taught y'all. I mean, he would make you catch so many balls per day. What did he do to make you a better football player?
Oh man, Coach Dixon's DNA is all over my life. As far as like I said, off the field, on the field, as a father, I mean, as a man, what he's done has influenced all of his receivers. If you look at all of the guys that are coaching now, I think it's in Washington Redskins. You got Jaquez. He was down in Valdosta. Riedell's down in Tampa coaching. And the list, Nick Shirelli's out of Denver as a scout. I mean, and the list goes on and on. I'm coaching now here at Bishop Coleman. But what Coach Dixon did for us, man, it just taught us a lot. It just wasn't on the football field; it was off the football field. All the drills that he taught us, and like you said, I think he was definitely underappreciated because we had so much talent. But he molded that talent. He made his talent better. You know what I'm saying? So you don't get a lot of coaches that make your talent better. And I tell the guys all the time, man, he's the best in the business. He's the best coach I ever had. And that's college, and I mean, obviously college and NFL. Just the small things that he taught you, small drills that he took from day to day, and you applied it to the game. And just me coaching because I'm coaching for high school football now, and what he taught me back then is what I'm teaching guys now. And the way he coached back then is the way I coach. And so he definitely influenced, me and all the other rest of the guys in a very, very positive way.
We're speaking with Travis Taylor, former wide receiver, number 19 here at the University of Florida. Travis, you had a tremendous career in your 3 years here. We just got a text here on the Titan MR text line from Joseph. Joseph wants to know, being a Jacksonville kid, what was it like playing in the Gator Bowl against the Georgia Bulldogs?
Oh, it was wonderful because all of my family's from Southeast Georgia, Kingston, Georgia, and so never was a Bulldog fan and didn't like the Bulldogs, man. But everybody in Georgia loved loved the Bulldogs. So I was that one outlier back then where, hey, it's a Gator. And then to see, all my family come to games in Gator gear, man, it was unbelievable. But just playing the Georgia Bulldogs in the Gator Bowl was a highlight of my Florida career. I've always wanted to be on that stage and compete and perform at a high level. And for me, we were 2-1 my time in Florida, so I definitely enjoyed it.
Your junior year, your last game you play as a Gator, you're the MVP of the 99 Orange Bowl. Talk a little bit about that game, and then what made you decide to turn pro?
Oh man, that game was actually it was the Citrus Bowl. Was my last game.
Oh, yeah.
The Citrus Bowl was the last game down in Florida, down in Orlando. It was a very, very hard decision. I think anybody who tells you it's easy to say, well, I'm leaving my college to go to the NFL. It's not easy at all, especially coming out early, because these guys that you knew since you were 17 years old, 16 years old, and you develop a bond with them. It's blood, sweat, and tears, all the tour days and all the workouts and stuff that you put in this time, and these are your friends, these are your life friends at that. And so to say, well, hey, you know what, man, I'm not going to be here next year with you guys. I'm going to go to the NFL. It was a hard decision. But actually, man, I look back, I'm thinking today, yesterday, it's about to be 20 years. So, to this year's draft, which is today. So it's been a long time, man, and it kind of reflecting, thinking back about the things that happened and all the good things and all the bad things and all the exciting times that we had. And hey, it was a wonderful experience to be able to play in the Citrus Bowl and be the MVP of my last game and go to the NFL.
Yeah, you talk about the draft that starts tonight. It's going to be a unique draft, but what was your draft experience like? How did you spend it? Were you in New York? Were you at home with friends and family? How was it? Was it nerve-wracking?
It was very nerve-wracking. Actually, I spent it down in Jacksonville with my family. There's at the TPC, actually. Down there, man, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And all my family and friends were there, and we just enjoyed the draft. It was definitely nerve-wracking, man. I was attempting. It took like 4 hours to get drafted. So I'm like, you're just in there sweating, like, man, what's going on? What's going on? What's going to happen? And you finally get that phone call, and it was Ozzie Newsome and Brian Billick, and you want to be a Baltimore Raven? Absolutely. Never been to Baltimore. I did. That wasn't one of my teams I visited. I visited Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and never really thought that Baltimore was one of those teams that I end up at. But it was a joy, man. That was probably one of the most happiest days of my life.
Yeah, you were drafted first round by the Baltimore Ravens, and then, believe it or not, I mean, you got to do something that a lot of guys play a long time in the NFL. I mean, I played 14 years. I never made it to a Super Bowl. What was it like playing in a Super Bowl and winning it?
Oh, man, it was unbelievable. Like you said, coming in the first year, being on the dominant team, probably the best defense in the NFL history, playing with guys like Rob Woodson, Ray Lewis, Shannon Sharp, Jonathan Ogden, Peter Boulware, Sarah Gusa, Jamal Lewis, Priest Holmes, Ben Coates. So the list goes on, man. They had the opportunity to play with all those guys and share that experience with them. Was a great experience. And I like, man, this is easy. This is all you got to do. And, I'm thinking, well, shoot, my first year, won Super Bowl. I probably went 3 or 4 more of these things. But I didn't realize how hard it was to get there. Like you said, you played 14 years and didn't get a chance to win a Super Bowl. So that was my first and last time at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, we're speaking with Travis Taylor on the Titan MRI hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We really appreciate him joining us. He's out in Las Vegas. Real quick, let everybody know you're coaching at the powerhouse, Bishop Gorman High School out there. I mean, it's like a small college, or maybe it's bigger than some small colleges. Talk about how you got out there. You've been coaching high school ball for a long time, but how did you get to Las Vegas?
Well, like I said, I've been coaching high school ball for a while now. It started in Jacksonville, Oakleaf High School, coached there for 3 years, and then ended up moving back to Atlanta. And then I coached at Atlanta for a year at Brookwood High School out of Snellville, and then moved to Las Vegas. One of my good friends is Randall Cunningham, and kind of taught me in the movement out here. He's actually trying to get moved to Vegas since 2001 when I first met him, and ended up coming out here. Like, you know what, man, I can live in Vegas, and moved to Vegas and coached at Desert Pines High School for a year, the JV team, and then met Coach Greg Canfield, who was the offense coordinator at Bishop Gorman, and a national title run. They had 3 national title runs. And he's like, man, like, you come to Bishop Gorman when I go. I'm like, okay, and they go to Bishop Gorman, man. Like you said, it is bigger than a small college. It is ran like a Division One college. Coach Browner is a new football coach there, man. And he has some playing experience, and I actually decoded Coach Brown. Me and him played together at Baltimore Ravens. So there's a natural connection with the guys that's on the coaching staff, man, and it just clicked. It just felt like the right place to be, I'm at Bishop Gorman.
Susan texts on the Titan MRI hotline. She wants to know, Travis, what was your greatest moment as a Gator?
Oh man, greatest moment as a Gator. I got so many. I think probably for me was the '99 Orange Bowl, because that year was, I was kind of I would say that whole year because an unknown guy from Reebok High School in Jacksonville get an opportunity to play at the University of Florida, get on the football field, make some plays, and kind of ended the year. The year was a pretty good year. I was a sophomore, and we had Travis Griff, we had Nafees Kareem, we had Jamie Richardson. So we had a lot of guys that were playing at a high level, and get an opportunity to get on the field and make some plays, and it was cool. But I think for me, going to the Orange Bowl, '99, and really kind of putting a staple on the game, and actually winning the MVP of the Orange Bowl. And so that's probably my greatest moment as a Gator.
Travis, I have every guy on this show when they play for teams, they're required to give a couple of Coach Spurrier stories. You got a good story for us?
Oh man, I guess there's so many good stories here. Some good, some bad. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, which one do I want to tell that I can probably tell? Oh man, so we're playing. Coach Bird, one of them guys that he doesn't hold any punches. He's gonna tell you like it is. He's not. You're gonna know how he feels about you as a person, as a football player. But he means well for everybody. So this is one we played Tennessee. We played the Volunteers. I think we played Tennessee in Tennessee. This is '98. We had like 5 turnovers that game, and losing in I think double overtime off of missed field goal. So so Alex Willis, man, he catches his ball, and he catches the ball and end up fumbling the ball once he catches it, and Coach Spurrier goes in a rant. He's like, you know what, Alex, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I'm the dummy for even put you in the game.
Yep.
It was funny, but it's like, wait a minute, did he just say that? Like what? But it caught you off guard. It caught you off guard, and but it was funny, but also like, man, that was kind of harsh. But Alex went on to have a great year that year and played well. I guess we all played bad that Tennessee game, but that's one thing that stuck in my mind about Coach Spurrier. But there's a lot of great stories about Coach Spurrier, man. One of the most wonderful people I ever met in this football world. Actually, I saw him at the Orange Bowl this past year. And so I ran into him, was talking to him on the sideline, and man, just to just to get a chance to talk to him again is always a blessing, always a wonderful thing. And so I've always talked to Coach Spurrier throughout my NFL career when he was at South Carolina. Actually, my first college football game ever going to was at the University of South Carolina, because Coach, I reached out to Coach Spurrier, like, yeah, come to the game, and man, it was a wonderful experience. And so, I'll always have a special place for him in my heart, Coach Spurrier.
When you coach your receivers, I mean, obviously you probably run a lot of the stuff that you learned in the NFL and from Dwayne Dixon, but Coach Spurrier was tremendous at it because the receivers and the quarterbacks always met together. And then that was something that's very unique in my opinion, because this was the only place in all my years of playing football the receivers and quarterbacks met together. Have you taken a little bit of what Coach Spurrier taught you and implement that when you coach your young kids?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like you said, that was one of the only places where the receiver and receivers and quarterback met together. So whatever the quarterbacks learned, that we learned, and so we got a different perspective of the game, and that's why I think so many of us are coaches from the receiving position. I know a lot of times you always get the quarterbacks become coaches later on in their life, but For a lot of us to learn the game that way and see the game through a quarterback eyes, it was definitely a blessing because those same techniques that, I take from me in coaching is all about timing. It's all about being in certain spots on the field. It's all about being in the right place at the right time. And so I teach my guys, look, we have certain places we got to be on the field against certain defenses and get into those open areas. And so I get that from Coach Spurrier, man, Coach Jason. And I definitely teach my guys, the quarterbacks and the receivers, the same thing that Coach Spurrier taught us was in college.
Well, Travis, that's great stuff, man. I really do appreciate you joining us at, 5 o'clock your time out in Vegas. I know the
No problem, brother.
Gator Nation is excited to hear from you. Be safe out there, buddy, and we'll be following Bishop Gorman this year. Take care.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, man. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come on and share some of the stories and all the good times of being a Gator. Go Gators.
All right. Travis Taylor joining us from Las Vegas. Hey, folks, Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Palmetto Moon, Skechers, Starbucks, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, Select Shades, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. We're going to take a quick last time out. We'll be right back. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
Time out! Time out! Hey, time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. PEACHLAND Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Cold Stone Creamery, Gator Domino's, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back. Pot Up Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We want to thank today Heath, Cline, and former Gator Travis Taylor joining the program. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Tomorrow's program is an Ocala flavor to it. We're going to have former Gator quarterback John Brantley join us, the dad, and also former assistant coach for Billy Donovan on his staff here, Matt McCall, who's now the head basketball coach at UMass. Both will be joining the program on the Titan MRI hotline. But another good show. Again, if you're watching this, please go to Facebook Live, like us, and follow us. Tell your friends about us. Share our program. You can watch us on YouTube as well, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. The more the merrier. But that's pretty much going to be a wrap. Enjoy the draft tonight. I know I'm looking forward to it. Probably the first time I've ever looked forward to the NFL draft. Give us something to watch. We'll recap it tomorrow as well. But be safe out there, folks, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.